Okay.
Earlier this week, we met the clan's Pestilence. Skaven wholly dedicated to making the Great Horned Rat supreme, by killing everything else with disease and biological weapons. Those weapons, as we named them yesterday, are the Great Plagues. So let's move from the faction as a whole into its various leaders. The Vermin Lord, Corruptor, the Plague Priests, and we'll kind of touch on the Plague Furnace and go into it more detail tomorrow. So we'll start off the day talking about Vermin Lord Corruptors. These are the rarest and most physically powerful of Pestilence leadership. First thing to understand is that these are not just giant rats. It's easy to get that assumption in when you first look at the models, but they are truly demons. They even have the keyword on their war scroll. Think of them as a bloodthirster, Lord of Change, or Great Unclean One. Well, we know all demons are pure embodiments of their deities. The Vermin Lord Corruptors embody the Great Horned Rat, specifically his role as the Great Corruptor. These greater demons are more complex versions of their smaller counterparts. They are just like Skaven, cunning, conniving, prideful, backstabbing. They have delusions of grandeur, but it's amplified by a far greater intellect, more power, and more autonomy. Corruptors will have bitter rivalries with each other that will span eons. But of course they always unite to take on a single threat or enemy, or even just other Skaven clans. They really are truly Clan Pestilence Skaven amplified. And as far as their physical abilities, they are living carriers of the worst plagues. They exude fleas and ticks and all manner of kind of demonic parasites. Weapons will rust in their presence, and the stench of decay makes heroes crumble and gag before them. It's in their nature to hate everything that is pure and verdant and healthy. Their supernatural drive and power is to corrupt everything around them. Now, not every congregation or clan within Clan Pestilence is led by a corruptor, but anytime a corruptor comes into one, he immediately takes command. There's no argument. That doesn't stop Plague Priests from scheming to get rid of a leader, but you'll never see them do it openly or publicly because, frankly, few would ever cross a corruptor and even fewer are successful. Now, speaking of that kind of lower tier leader, there is the Plague Priest. Now, these are by far the most numerous of all Clan Pestilence leader, and Plague Priest really is a broad term for several different roles, and we'll get to that to a little bit. But every single one of these characters is a frothing lunatic, utterly devout in their faith of the Great Horned Rat. They are part religious leader, part chemist, part military commander. They lead the religious rites and prayers and such of the congregation, so scripture readings, incantation, prayer, like I said before. They're also the ones to produce the plagues themselves. They stir these large pots, constantly refining their process to increase the efficacy and mortality rate of their plagues, always testing them on nearby slaves who have a short and brutal life. And while their minds and their apparatus, what they use to do this with, is not scientific in nature, the results they can achieve in bioweapons is staggering. And the last thing I said, they're also part military commander because they have a variety of roles on the battlefield. Higher priests will kind of organize armies on religious crusades to get the Great Plagues, while smaller, lower level ones will lead specific congregations into battle, much like a lieutenant. And some still beneath them ride actual war machines into battle, the Plague Furnaces, which we'll talk more about tomorrow. Now, given all these roles, you can see that a clan or congregation has many priests. In fact, larger clans can have hundreds of them. And they all vie for control, authority, and respect. And they typically do this in about two ways. The first one, the most prevalent for sure, is lofty titles. You'll see Plague Priests with crazy titles like the Most Blessed Master of the Chittering Chant, this long, elaborate thing, and it's because it's meant to fool the simpler minds, right? A Skaven who has zero intelligence would be like, whoa, that guy sounds super important. He must be the greatest Plague Priest ever. And they'll kind of gain a following that way. The second way that they can kind of rise in authority and respect is by being the best at making poisons and toxins. Because in this role, they are the true architects of death. You kind of hone your recipe, share it, display its effectiveness, and rise through the ranks by being the most ingenious creator of terrible things. So because of their commonness and the wide variety of roles they fulfill, They really do set the course for the average congregation and see the mission of finding the Great Plagues fulfilled. Now, briefly at the end here, why are these 2 units interesting? Again, it's only 2 of them. The Plague Priest can also ride the Plague Furnace, but realistically there's the Priests and the Vermin Lord Corruptor. Well, as I said in a lot of these videos, I think heroes make Horde armies unique, and this is what I mean. When you get to a point where you just have kind of faceless masses, your character-driving factors become your heroes. This person leads this, right? This war boss is leading this horde of orcs. It's his Wa, and it makes perfect sense. Well, the same thing happens with Skaven. We can't possibly recount the billions and billions of Skaven, but we can focus on this Plague Priest religious crusade, this Vermin Lord Corruptor's journey as he takes over congregation to congregation to achieve his personal ultimate goal. And so even though there's only 2 units here, they make up so much of the character, a disproportionate amount of character in this army. So if you are a Clan Pestilence player and you want to start doing narrative stuff, really flesh out your heroes first and everything else just kind of flows naturally. Now, another thing I want to touch on is Corruptors. Vermin Lord Corruptors are incredibly interesting for a few reasons, because the other Chaos Gods, Khorne, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, Nurgle, they really have 1 or 2 kind of themes or facets, right? And that's what their greater demons embody. Nurgle is plague and disease, but also despair is his thing. Tzeentch is magic a lot, but then also plans and schemes and manipulation and so forth. And they all have kind of secondary things. What's interesting about the Vermin Lord Corruptor is it kind of gives us an insight into the Great Horned Rat, having so many distinct facets of who he is, that he has entire demons, greater demon level stuff, built around those facets. He is so multi-dimensional that he has a Vermin Lord Corruptor, and the Warbringer, and the Warp Seer. Like, these are all very different things, and they all hate each other, of course, but they all represent the exact same deity. And I find that deeply fascinating. In fact, as I was thinking about the Great Horned Rat being a part of the Chaos God Pantheon, of course they don't want him there, they see him as beneath them. He really does do something absolutely unique within that setting. Even those 5 characters, the 4 traditional Chaos Gods and the Great Horned Rat, he stands out completely different. He has so many different aspects of him that are so well defined that they take on life. That they lead, personally, his armies in different ways, like vastly different ways. And while I'd hate to see like a whole faction necessarily of Skaven demons, I think the normal Skaven are enough. I do find it fascinating that he can display himself in so many different ways. But friends, those are just my thoughts on the leadership of Clan Pestilence. And I want to hear yours. What is your favorite of the 2? One thing that I wish I had seen, and maybe someone can expand upon this in the comments, is I wish there were different kind of Plague Priests. One to represent the one who makes actual poxes, the one who leads, the more higher up echelon, like Pope level, I guess, Plague Priest. Different, kind of representing the different roles that they do, I think would have been a fantastic choice. But I want to hear your thoughts on what I mentioned at the end here about demons and the Great Horned Rat and how that all works out. It's a cool topic, and I enjoyed talking about it. We'll be back tomorrow morning to discuss the other units, basically everything else in the Battle Tome, because there's not a ton of units in the Clan Pestilence Battle Tome. And then we're going to finish off the week talking about some tactics and tricks and stuff like that. So thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's video. Hey Wargamers, thank you so much for watching that video. Be sure to hit subscribe and click the little bell notification icon so you're alerted to all new videos coming out.